So it begs the question then, Ray, contact modalities like UAPs, UFOs, near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, ghosts, spirits, channeling, remote viewing, ESP, hallucinogenic journeys, orbs. I mean, are they all interrelated? Are they all the same thing?
Yes. Yes. So let me tell you how that developed, and also to talk about this new organization where we have over 20 PhD academics, and all of them have the same hypothesis. Let me start with the PhD academics, like that'll
Okay.
draw the reader's attention. Okay. Um, I started an organization titled Consciousness and Contact Research Institute, or CCRI. It's comprised of approximately 20 PhDs and several medical doctors, and about 10 individuals who do not have PhDs, but they're researchers in these various fields that you just mentioned. Some of the members in our organization, we have one of the co-chairs of our research committee is Dr. Jeffrey Long. He's a medical oncologist, a cancer specialist, who has written several books on near-death experiences, and he's been collecting survey data for over 20 years. He has over 14,000 individuals that have completed his surveys on near-death experiences. He has more than 4,000 individuals that completed his surveys on out-of-body experiences. And he is considered now one of the world's premier researchers on near-death experiences, especially since the retirement of the old vanguard, Raymond Moody, Dr. Kenneth Ring, Dr. Bruce Grayson, et cetera, et cetera. They're pretty much not doing research anymore, but Jeffrey is now working part-time. He's semi-retired, and he agreed to be the co-chair of our research committee. Okay. Also, the other co-chair of our research committee is Dr. Bob Davis. He's a retired professor of neuroscience. He taught neuroscience for more than 35 years at State University of New York. We also have Dr. Rudy Shields, who is an emeritus professor of astrophysics at Harvard University. And he was the director of the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Foundation, and he's going to be continuing his work with the CCRI Foundation. We also have Dr. Claude Swanson, who received a PhD in physics from Princeton University, where Einstein taught. Okay. We also have Dr. Dean Radin, who is the lead scientist at the Institute for Noetic Sciences, who is probably one of the world's leading research scholars on the psi phenomenon, and he's published 3 books on consciousness and the psi phenomenon. We have Stephen Schwartz, who's one of the inventors of remote viewing. For more than 50 years, he's been studying remote viewing. He's one of the founders of that, even before it was called remote viewing. We have Dr. Gary Schwartz, who received a PhD in psychology from Harvard University. He later became a tenured professor at Yale University. And for the last 20 years, he's been at the University of Arizona because they lured him away from Yale with a huge laboratory filled with hundreds of thousands of electronic equipment, so he can study mediumship, okay, and communication with deceased entities. And I could go on and on and on with names similar to this, but at least you and your audience members have an idea of the people in our group.
I was just going to say, in other words, combined IQ totaling into the thousands.
Well, these are individuals that have a deep, sincere interest in this phenomenon, most of them for at least 30 years, some of them for 50 years, okay? All of these people, and about another 15 that I didn't even mention, all of them hypothesize that consciousness is primary. That means that our physical reality is not what it seems to be, okay? That really our consciousness reality is the true existence of our reality, which is a heavy topic to discuss, very complicated. We could do that at a later date. Secondly, all of these individuals hypothesize, just like I do, that all of what we're calling the contact modalities, which are the different ways that humans are piercing the veil and having contact with non-human intelligence, near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, UFO contact, remote viewing, ghosts, spirits, poltergeists, orbs, channeling, hallucinogenic journeys, etc., etc., etc. All of them involve a manipulation of space-time. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And because all of them involve a manipulation of space-time, they share certain commonalities. And we have experiencers all over the world, as revered by our free experiencer research study, that are not just having UFO contact experiences. They're not just having NDEs. They're not just having just OBEs. They're having all of the above and much, much more. They're having all of the contact modalities, okay, throughout their lives, okay? So the researchers in our free research study, and I can talk about that a little bit later on, knew this, but we never had the data. Okay, now the fields of mainstream materialist ufology are totally clueless about this. They totally ignore these topics. When you talk about paranormal, oh, that's woo-woo science, that's woo-woo crazy shit, you know? So they totally dismiss it. All they care about is talking about Rendlesham Forest or the Roswell crash for the 5,000th time, or the new Tic Tac video that just came out, you know, showing an Air Force pilot following a UFO in the field, okay? My perspective and the perspective of all the members in our organization is that what has that materialist approach contributed to a better understanding of the field of ufology? Okay, we, all of us, argue very little, okay, almost nothing, okay. From 70 years ago, where has that knowledge taking place 70 years later? But let me backtrack a little bit, somewhat, and talk about the free experiencer research study. Then we could talk about the contact modalities. Okay.
This is with Dr. Edgar Mitchell?
Correct. This involves Dr. Edgar Mitchell. Okay. I told you in the audience members that there was about a 2.5-year period of nonstop paranormal experiences. Most of the major experiencers around the world would certainly understand that, because a lot of these experiences, they come in segments of time. Okay, and then they stop for a very long time period or a certain time period, and then they restart up again. Okay, well, for me, I had that 2 years of intense experiences. One of those experiences, let me just go through one of them. Okay, one of them, I was driving on Route 836 in Miami, which is like an 8-lane highway that goes east and west. It takes major traffic from the western part of Miami, and in the morning leads you to downtown Miami. Folks in New York City, just think of the Long Island Expressway, or people live in New Jersey, the New Jersey Turnpike. You know, it's always clogged for 4 hours or so during rush hour. And so anyway, I was there at 8:30 in the morning, heading into downtown Miami. I am an IRS estate tax attorney. I've been doing that for more than 20 years, and that morning, I was listening to a radio interview of this man who was going to school to become a filmmaker. And he was doing a documentary on his liposuction, how he was getting the fat from his liposuction, and he was doing art fat from that. Okay.
Right.
And so very entertaining, very stimulating. And all of a sudden, I was not in my car anymore. I was pure mind. I was pure consciousness. There was no physicality surrounding where I was. Okay. And so, and this was very, very quickly, the scenarios changed. And so immediately you're like in bewilderment, what the hell is going on? And then all of a sudden I see materializing all around me like videos. I was inside of a huge cartwheel, and the cartwheel had like different spokes. Okay, and inside each spoke had a different video, and it was slowly moving around. And then what I saw is in each of these cartwheels was what I now call a contact modality. And as I said before, these are all the different ways that humans are piercing the veil and having contact with non-human intelligence. All of them involve a manipulation of space-time. So in one was UAP, UFO type of contact experiences. Another one was near-death experiences. Another one was out-of-body experiences. Another one was ghosts and spirits. Another one were, ghosts and spirits and poltergeist type of experiences. Another one was channeling. Another one was remote viewing. Another one were hallucinogenic type of experiences where people are communicating with non-human intelligence, et cetera, et cetera. And then I looked at each one, and I got like an instantaneous download of everything involved with that phenomenon. Okay, and I knew what it was. And so then after I got like a quick download for each of these different things, right? Then it was never a voice, but it was just information that was given to me that said humans are studying all of these different phenomena as separate and distinct, but in actuality, it's one phenomenon.
Right, right.
Okay, they're not separate. Okay, humans believe. Oh no. Humans are calling it consciousness, the glue that's holding it all together. Okay, but in fact, it's the very fabric of our reality. Okay. And so as all of this was going on, I had no conceptualization, no idea what the hell was going on. I didn't even understand these concepts. These are just concepts that would, put to me.
I mean, as you said, it's very complicated to get your head around for the average person.
Yeah. And so, and then what the information that was given to me was, you need to inform humanity of the relationship between us, whatever this intelligence is, okay, the spirit world, and consciousness. Okay, the relationship between us, the spirit world, and consciousness. Okay, you will need assistance, and there's two criteria for that assistance. This is not about you getting rich and making money. For those two criteria, okay. So immediately after it said you need to have individuals to help you out that would have minimal ego, poof, I'm back in the car. I'm still listening to this interview, and the interview did not skip a beat. There was no time that had spent. Okay, so I was, but yet I believe that I was out there for 20 to 30 minutes in that experience. So I was taken outside of space and outside of time. Okay, and that was one of the questions that we asked in our free experiential research study. Have you ever been taken to what might be considered a multi-dimensional matrix reality? And we defined it.
Okay. Yep.
We defined it a little bit. Like the best picture would be like, have you seen Jodie Foster's movie Contact?
Yeah, a million times.
Okay, you know where she was brought, right?
Yep.
Okay, we asked that question. And what did we get? Half the people that took our survey, half have had that experience.
Wow.
Okay, now, do you think mainstream ufology discusses this? Okay, but why? Because these are considered paranormal experiences that science cannot explain. But yet here you have half of the 4,200 people that took our survey stated that, including myself. Okay, all right, we had 80% of the people that took our survey, I'm jumping a little bit ahead of the game, have had these out of body experiences. 80%. Okay, huge numbers. Okay, but anyway, I'm jumping ahead of the game here. Okay, so here I was taken outside of space-time. Now, that wasn't the most interesting part of what happened. The most interesting part of what happened is what happened immediately afterwards. Okay, immediately afterwards, when I got back home late that afternoon, I got an email from Mary Rodwell. And it's too bad that you already interviewed, because you could have asked her this question. Okay, I received an email from Mary. She said, "Dear Ray, I'm sorry I'm responding to an email that you had sent me 6 months ago, but it just popped up on my computer today." Okay, so here was a message held up in cyberspace for the very first day that I had that experience. Okay, then I responded back to her. I said, well, in the last 6 months, this is all the crazy stuff that has happened, and this happened today. And she was like blown away. She says, "Oh my God, Ray, we need to talk." So she showed me how to use Skype, and we spoke on Skype till like 1:30 in the morning. Okay, and we continued to our discussions, because I told her how to go to work the next day. So the very next morning, I received a phone call at 9:30 in the morning. "Hello, is this Rey Hernandez?" "Yes." "Who's this?" "Oh, this is Dr. Rudy Shields." "Who?" I had no idea who this man was. This is a retired professor of astrophysics for over 45 years at Harvard University, okay, calling me at 9:30 in the morning. What had happened was that Mary had sent him an email with my contact information, but he should have waited till Mary had sent my response that, yes, it's okay for Rudy to call me, which Mary was in my inbox, but I never checked that morning.
Yep.
Okay. And so I agreed to talk to him, and we spoke for 90 minutes. At that point, he heard my story, and he says, what you got, Ray, was Dr. Edgar Mitchell's quantum hologram theory of consciousness, which is an advanced physics theory of how consciousness works, okay? And also leads to the contact modalities as well, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And so at the end of it, he says that he was going to be my scientific advisor for what I needed to do. And so I hadn't even given it any thought. This is the very next day. This is 24 hours later. Okay. He doesn't, Ray, write down this telephone number. So I wrote it down. He says, this is the telephone number of my mentor, and you need to talk to him. So I said, well, who's your mentor? And he goes, Dr. Edgar Mitchell. Okay. So
Right.
we hung up the phone after 90 minutes, and he gave me the instruction to call Edgar Mitchell. And I knew who Edgar was because after all of my UFO experiences, I was on the YouTube, Googling ufology, and Edgar Mitchell was pretty much the founder of the UFO disclosure movement. He also was pretty much one of the founders of modern parapsychology. He had started the Institute for Noetic Sciences,
Mm-hmm.
and he knew most of the parapsychologists in the world, and then all of the consciousness work that had been developed out of IONS, the Institute for Noetic Sciences. So I worked up the courage to give Edgar a call about 4 hours later, and lo and behold, he invited me to his home the very next day. So here I was, 24 hours after my experience. I was at the home of Edgar Mitchell. He only lived 90 minutes away in Lake Worth, Florida.
Yep.
And there I spent the entire day with Edgar. And he told me all about his life, all the details. And I subsequently became very good friends with Edgar. And I was at his home more than 20 different times. And I've got, photos to prove that as well, in case anyone is saying that. Well,
Yeah.
anyway, after that, Edgar told me that the experience that I had, which also involves some physics, equations popping in and out and that sort of thing. He says, Ray, what you had gotten was my quantum hologram theory of consciousness. Okay. And then he went on to explain it. And then he says, Rudy and I already discussed it. We have decided that we will be your scientific advisors whenever you decide to move forward with your mandate. And at that point, this was 48 hours later. I had no idea what the hell this man was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I thought he was a little off the rocker, And so I then left his home. I emailed Mary. We had a Skype conversation, and I told her everything that happened. And he says, look, if I ever do decide what I want to do, would you like to join us? And she said, yes. So it was like about a week later, she says, Ray, I've got the name for it. So she gave me that name, F.R.E.E.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. A few days later, which was on a Sunday morning, I woke up, Saturday morning, I woke up and I had the whole research methodology for the world's first comprehensive academic research study of UFO contact experiencers. I wrote out all the details. It was like 3 or 4 pages in length,
Right.
with all the topic categories of what would be asking in this methodology. And lo and behold, we had all these PhD academics that were interested in joining us. Dr. John Klimo became the co-chair. Dr. John Klimo taught research methodology and was a professor of psychology for 45 years. And he was also one of the few professors to be a tenured professor whose main focus of interest was the paranormal. And you just don't see that, these days. And then the other co-chair was Dr. Bob Davis. He had just recently retired as a professor of the brain, a professor of neuroscience.
Mm-hmm.
He became the other co-chair with myself. So the 3 of us became the co-chairs of this research study. And then we brought in people like Kathy Martin, like Barbara Lamb, like Denise Stoner, like Leo Sprinkle, with the we had, so we can get the baseline of the experiencers, so we can get the minds of the academics with the knowledge of the researchers together. How do we go about doing this study? And it took us about 6 months to develop that methodology. And lo and behold, we developed 3 surveys, 2 quantitative, 1 qualitative. For the quantitative survey, we wound up with 4,200 responses from over 100 countries. And then in the qualitative survey, we developed 70 open-ended questions. And for that, we had about 1,400 responses. We received more than 10,000 pages of responses. So this is a huge, massive endeavor.